when you're learning to use a new piece of technology like a phone, a tablet or a computer, it can be difficult when you've gone to something, going back to it again later on, right? So how do you actually do that? To give an example of how that works, I'm not just showing how to do that, I'm showing some of the problems associated with that. To give an example, let's say I'm in a Google web browser, on the Google web browser, the Google page, and I type in here, I want to search for something, for example, my name. Hit my name and it searches and it finds something, all right? That's not me, all right? That's this other guy, Jeff Krieg, all right? So I scroll down the page and I don't find what I'm looking for, so I go to more results, still don't find what I'm looking for, and eventually find my home page. That's my home page there, okay. So I go into my home page. Then from there, I go to somewhere else. For example, I go to my training material, and from there, I go to something of computer training videos. Now, if I want to go back to where I was on a phone, there's a button called back, right? So this is down the bottom here, it's the back button. And you'll see when I did a long press on it, because I'm doing that, these other things come up. I'll talk about that in a minute, all right? Sometimes it's on the other side, that one there, all right? That's not what I wanted to do. I pressed it by mistake. I come out of that, all right? Okay. All right, so when you do something, well, by the way, if you do make a mistake, you can usually always press the back button and it goes back again, all right? If I press the back button once now, it'll take me to the page I came from. If I press it another time, it'll take me from the page before that one. If I press that one, it takes me to the page before that one. And if I keep on going back often enough, it'll take me to my original search where I started, all right? But what happens if you want to go back from going back? Well, back from back is actually forward. So if I press back again now, I'll probably go to something else I had there. But if I wanted to go to the page that I came back from this one, there's a button called forward, and it's on a computer. It's usually an arrow going the opposite way to the back button. You'll notice on a phone here, down the bottom here, there's nothing down the bottom that says forward, all right? Okay, I did the wrong thing again there, all right? Okay, there's no button that says forward. However, if you go up the top here, and those three dots, all right? Those three dots up there, okay? And I touch that, comes up with another menu, and you notice you've got this arrow key here, which is the forward button. If I touch that one, it'll take me forward again. If I do it again, touch it again, it takes me forward again. The same way as I was searching originally. If I press that one, press that again, it takes me forward again. All right, touch that, go forward again. So eventually, I'll get to the stage, yes, notice it's greyed out, so I can't touch it and go forward again. However, rather than going forward and backwards like that all the time, another thing you can do is actually go to the pages, you get a list of the pages you've went to. So how do you do that? There's a couple of different ways of doing that, all right? So I just get rid of this screen, all right? Rather than pressing the back button, if I do a long press on it, which I'd already done, you'll notice here's a list of all the web pages I've been to recently. For example, earlier I was looking at high interest rates on the Westpac site. So I go there, and there's something about high interest rates, 3%, by the way. To do 3%, or to get 3% out of a bank, you've got to do all sorts of ups and downs and things to get it, almost impossible to get it. Anyway, so that's another way of doing it. However, one of the other things that also happens that a lot of people think is, let's say 4 days ago, I want to go to a page I went to 4 days ago. What you can do is, once again, on the menu at the top here, whoops, touched it by mistake, on those three dots up the top here, touched it by mistake, press that again, and here it's got this thing called history. Whoop. History. If I touch history and go to it, there you are. It says browsing history. It says today, 23rd of July 2021. If I scroll up that and I go back, you can see I've been doing lots of browsing today. Somewhere I'll have the previous day and the previous day and the previous day, etc. Lots and lots and lots of history. 20th of January 2021, history. I can go back. For example, if I went to Quick Change, or whatever that was, can't remember going to that, all right? Okay, went there. Quick charge, not quick change, right? So I can go back to what I did previous days. If you can't remember where you went back to, rather than doing an overall Google search, which is what a lot of people do, you can also press that, go into history, and then actually do a search in history. For example, if I type quick, Q-U-I-C-K, okay, there we are, quick charge. We could be a fast charging mobile check deposits. I don't know what that one was, okay, on how to get something in a web page. So that's it. Okay, that's all very well for doing something on a browser, all right? That's all very well. And the other thing I haven't spoken about is this number at the top here where you can actually get tabs. I've got actually group tabs, which I'm not going to talk about now, but you can actually have group tabs in a phone browser as well. I'm not going to talk about that, but you can actually set up tabs to go think. And also, you can also use a thing called bookmarks. So if I touch up here, you notice this star here is bookmarks. I've done previously a previous video on bookmarks. So if you're using something all the time, you'd bookmark it. If you're doing it once in a while, you wouldn't do that. So that's all very well in doing a browser. But what also happens sometimes is a lot of people get fooled with this. Let's say I want to search for history, the word history, okay? I search for history, and then I don't want to just search for all what I want to search on videos and history, something about history. And there's history YouTube channel. There's a history channel on YouTube. So if I touch that, it goes to something else. And a lot of people think it's going to a web page. It isn't. This is calling up the app, the YouTube app. And you'll notice at the top here, all right, there's no those three buttons, or there is those three buttons, but they give me a completely different type of menu. Also, there's no what's called URL at the top. That's because I'm not in my web browser called Chrome. I'm actually in an app, the YouTube app, not the Google Chrome app. So if I go back with my back button down the bottom here and touch that, all right, goes back in YouTube once again. Now I've gone back into Google Chrome. Okay, so once again, just speaking that one, because I've gone to something which calls up a completely different app, in this particular case, the YouTube app, I touch it, goes into YouTube, I'm now in a completely different app. I'm no longer in Google Chrome, all right? A lot of people get fooled with that one. Okay, here's the next thing. So let's say I find something about history and I want to be able to go back to that again. How can I do that? How can I go back to it? I suppose I could always go back and search for history and come forward again, all right? However, if I go into a YouTube video like that one,
try new bubblegum frozen flavour with rainbow bursties, only at Hungry Jack's.
okay, and now in the ad there, all right. Okay, I'm going to pause it. Actually, there's another ad. Well, look at the second ad. Skip the ad. I'm now on the History Channel. Right. I've now paused it. All right. Okay, and I want to be able to get back to that again. How do I be able to get back to that? Once again, you can't just go back with the back button. All right. If you go forward through videos in YouTube and then you just go back, I doubt if it'll go back to the same video because this is an app, right? Okay, so what do you do about that, all right? Well, a couple of things with YouTube, right? If you go, if I close this off, which I think I'm doing, yeah, notice up the top there, this way, down the bottom. It's a thing called library, right? If you touch on library, it comes up, and one of the things you've got in the library is history, right? If you touch on history, there you are. There are all the YouTube videos that I've previously played, all right? Lots and lots and lots of videos. So you can't go back, but you can have a history, right? You can't go back, but you can have a history. All right, so that's something you can do with YouTube. Now, Depends on the app that you're doing, but usually if you go forward, you can go back, you can go forward, you can go back. Now, there's an exception to this, and the exception to this is to do with what's called dynamic web pages. So I'm just going to quickly jump back to Google Chrome, right? And I'm going to go into Facebook. Facebook is a classic example of a dynamic web page, right? Okay, here's Facebook. There's the Facebook I come up with, right? Okay, once on Facebook, you'll notice up the top the URL is simply called, in this case, M. Oh, I come up the top there. M. Well, I'm drawing it there. It's mfacebook.com, right? Even if I go now to a different page, right? I go to something else. For example, I don't know what this is. Some people, someone with some comments. I go to 3 comments. I go into comments, go on into something else. It has got mfacebook.com group, right? If I go back to where I was, okay, happens to be on the last page. It just happens to be there, right? But if I scroll down, slide down, which I just did, right? Now it's come up with a different page. And by the way, that's scrolling down. That thing I did there when that arrow goes round, it's the same as doing what's called a refresh. Or it's the same as pressing that and then pressing this button here. It's the same as refresh. On any web browser, if you down like that, it refreshes the screen. You'll notice every time I'm refreshing the screen, it's coming up with a different web page, even though the URL is mfacebook.com. So that's the exception. When you've got a dynamic web page, you can't go back to where you were. So those people are frustrated by using Facebook, and every time they come back, they can't get back to where they were. Sorry, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't copy the page because it's exactly the same page. It's dynamic. What it means is by dynamic is it means that rather than being a fixed web page like my web page is, right, where it's the same thing all the time unless I change it, this is actually changed by a computer program that's running on the server at the server end. So as a consequence, if you go and refresh it, if you refresh the screen, they give you a different page. Now, why do Facebook do that? They do it for one reason and one reason only. I'll see if I've got it still written here. No, it's not there. I've since closed it off. Okay. I thought I had. Yeah, it could be there. No, that's not that one. Yeah. How the Facebook algorithm works and the 5 best practices. What they do is Facebook are more interested in keeping you looking at Facebook. So if Facebook wants you to enjoy what you're doing, that way you stay on Facebook longer. Facebook is like television. Once you get onto one channel, they want to keep you on that one channel. Facebook is a website. They want you to be on Facebook all the time. So they'll feed you information that they think that you want. To be able to do that, right, they're making decisions on your behalf. You're not making decisions as to which page you go to. So if I go back to my Facebook thing again and refresh it again, once again, I'm getting something completely different, right? So that's one of the exceptions where you cannot get back to where you are. There's a possible exception. For example, if I go to back to where are we? I'll create a new page. All right, and I search for sales. All right, and I come up, and it comes up there. You'll notice this time, if I go up the top here and touch on what's called the URL, it has a very, very, very long URL, right? This is not a dynamic one. This is an individual one, I think, right? Matter of interest, if I copy that URL, I go to somewhere where I can paste it, which I'll go to there, all right? Create a web page. By the way, if you ever want to paste something, nothing better than an email. Notice how big this URL is. It's the search that I did, all right? That is not a dynamic web page. It's an individual web page which is dynamically created. Slight difference. And that means what you can do is if I copied that and saved it, I can then always go back and retrieve that same save that I did. Google, being a big company, do that. Facebook don't do that. All right. YouTube don't do that. All right. Each time you search on YouTube, you can't get a URL at all on a YouTube app. If you use YouTube on a browser, you possibly can. All right. So you can get back to it that. Okay. I do also mention, sorry, if you wanted to, I think I mentioned YouTube and how you can keep a record of which YouTube page you went to via the history. What I didn't show is how you can actually get a YouTube URL. All right, so I'm going to do that now. So let's jump back to YouTube. Okay, YouTube. Let's say I want to go to something, for example, those unknown.
This time of year can really add.
Pause that. Notice down the bottom over here, it's got a thing called share. All right. So if I touch that, it comes up with this screen. In my case, on different phones, it'll be different things, but one of the things I've got is copy the link. All right. If I touch on copy the link, all right, it's now copied that link. If I now go to somewhere I can paste that link, which is my email I had before, I'll just go down to the end, add a couple of lines. Oop. And I paste it in there. There's that YouTube link, even though it doesn't appear at the top of the screen. All right. And so there we are. You can also keep a record of those if you want to. So that's a lot of information about how to go forward, how to go back, how to remember where you are, and in some cases where, because of marketing reasons, you won't be able to get back to where you are. Want any questions about this? Send me an email.